lesson is about how to solve multi-step inequalities. Before we get started, let's review the steps. We learned these when we did multi-step equations. They're very, very similar here. So step 1 is to do the inverses by adding and subtract. So add and subtract. Step 2 is to multiply and divide. If those things need to happen because of an inverse. Step 3 is to flip the sign if you're multiplying or dividing by a negative. And step 4 is to graph. Okay. If you'd like, you could probably think of those kind of as an order of operations, similar to PEMDAS that you learned back in middle school. This is the order of operations for solving multi-step inequalities. Let's look at a few examples. Number 1, 160 plus 4f is less than or equal to 500. If I want to get f by itself, I will first notice it is being multiplied by 4 and added by 160. Step 1 was to add or subtract. So since 160 is positive, I'm going to subtract that from both sides to get rid of it on the first side so that I'm left with 4f is less than or equal to 340. Then f is being multiplied by 4, so the inverse of that would be to divide by 4. What I do to one side, I do to the other. 340 divided by 4 is 85. And I already put my sign down. I did not need to flip that because it wasn't a negative that I was multiplying by or dividing by. That would be my answer, and step 4 was to graph. So make a number line, be sure that 85 is on there, and some numbers around it would be good. Remember, we've talked about your scale can be different depending on what you want to use. As long as you're consistent, that's fine. The line underneath tells me that the circle will be closed at 85, and I will be shading to the left. And that's my answer for example 1. Let's do another one. Example number 2. 7 minus 2t is less than or equal to 21. In this problem, t is being multiplied by negative 2 and added by 7. The first step will be to get rid of the 7. It's positive, so I'm going to subtract it from both sides. And I'll be left with negative 2t is less than or equal to 14. Then t is being multiplied by a negative number, so I'm going to divide by that same number on both sides. And I have t on the left side. On the right side, 14 divided by negative 2 is negative 7. And since I divided by a negative, I'm going to flip my sign. My answer is t is greater than or equal to negative 7. Let's graph that. Put negative 7 on your graph and some numbers around it. The circle will be closed because of the line underneath. And my values are greater than negative 7. T is greater than or equal to negative 7. So I'm going to shade to the right. Let's look at one last problem together. Example number 3. 10 is greater than 5 minus p all over 2. A lot of things going on here, and in a different format than we're used to seeing. You will notice that p is negative. It has 5 being added to it, and it is all being divided by 2. In this step, we don't add or subtract first. Since everything is being divided by 2, we need to get rid of that so we can start moving the other things away from p. So I'm going to put this in parentheses and multiply this entire side by 2 and the entire other side by 2 as well, so that these will cancel. On that side, I will have 5 minus p. On the other side, I will have 2 times 10, which is 20. Now it looks a lot easier to handle. Now we'll add or subtract. We'll subtract 5 from both sides since it is positive. And we have 15 is greater than negative p. And then normally when I had a negative exponent back when we were doing equalities or equal solutions, I would just tell you to flip the signs. And that is still true here. We can just flip these signs. But when we do that, we also have to flip my inequality sign. Finally, when we did these, when we graphed, we would have rewritten this so it's p is greater than negative 15, because we always want our variable to be on the left side. And if I graph that, I put negative 15 on my graph. It would be an open circle since there is no line, and numbers greater than that would be shading to the right. The assignment is A11, and that's page 191, numbers 1 through 4, and 16 through 23. Good luck, and let me know if you have questions.